helping you with Acorn and RISC-OS computing.
Okay, well, firstly, good evening, everybody. Good to see a decent turnout. That's always appreciated. So thank you all for making the effort to turn out. I hope the promise of free software wasn't the only thing who made it, but if it was, that's okay too. There's going to be a mixture of things tonight, bit of everything really. There'll be some announcements, some new software stuff, some demonstrations, stuff that you've not seen before, and then we'll finish with a quiz. And the way the quiz is going to work is that you'll need a pencil and paper or something, or a text editor to write down some answers. And if you send them by email through to me, and I'll explain the addresses later, everybody who enters will get a prize. So, you know, even if you get all the answers wrong, you'll still get a prize that's probably worth having. It'll be your choice of a piece of software. And if you happen to get all the answers right, then you'll get your choice of some expensive software. So basically, and to be, as I said in the pre-meeting, you know, if somebody gets 9 out of 10 right, they might get the bonus prize too. It's not designed to be a mini Christmas. It's enthused with Christmas spirit where possible. So that's how it's all going to work, but the quiz will be at the end, so you do have to listen to all the rest of it before you get your free software. I'm sorry. So without further ado, let's start with an announcement. This will be good news and bad news depending on where you live and what you're hoping for. But in the autumn, Chris of the Wakefield User Group approached myself and Richard as organisers of the Southwest show to say that due to cost constraints, it wasn't going to be possible to do the Wakefield show in 2025. So rather than losing the Northern show, which a lot of people count on, Richard and I have stepped up to organise a new exhibition next year, which will be called RISC-OS North. We're hoping that we might be able to do something special for Wakefield club members as a thank you for previous exhibitions. We haven't finalised the details on that yet. Now, the show will be moving, I'm afraid, from Wakefield stroke Bradford, mainly because it was difficult for Richard and I to go house hunting, as it were, for venues at a point that was not really local to either of us. Richard is down in Southend-on-Sea, and I'm over in the Manchester area. So it's moving west to Warrington, which, as many of you know, is close to me. I'm sorry, but it was a place where we could find an affordable venue that sort of half the price of previous years in Bradford, and still maintain a high quality of hotel. So we feel that the hotel is of a similar quality to the Bradford experience, hopefully with better customer service that won't mess you around as much. But it's that sort of level of grandeur of venue. And I will shortly share my screen and show you some venues. The date will be the 29th of March. So it's sort of between the Southwest show and where Wakefield would normally have been. We've done it that way to dodge the wedding season, and also because the Dutch exhibition is usually very early in May. And if you run it too close to May, then we run the two shows very close to each other. Also, Easter is on the 22nd of April this year or next year, so we wanted to dodge that too. So 29th of March is when we're doing it. Now, the downside is that means that there won't be a Southwest RISC-OS show, because we can't organise two shows 6 weeks apart, which is what we would have been doing otherwise. It's just too much for Richard and I to orchestrate. And I think in terms of servicing the market, having two very close shows usually meant that there was very little new software between Southwest and Wakefield, which basically meant that the shows were less exciting for the majority of people attend both, and therefore it made one or other of them less exciting because there wasn't a lot of new stuff. So we decided that we'll go with the North show, and then we hope that Brian will be organising a South show in London, So 2 shows a year rather than 3 in the UK, but hopefully we can make them bigger and better, and more evenly spaced out. So that's the announcement. I'm going to share the screen to show you the venue a little bit so you can see where what we're doing. So let's go to screen share and that window and share. So all being well, you should be able to see a picture of a hotel. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see a picture of a hotel? Yeah, okay. So this is the Village Hotel in Warrington. You can see we've got at the front here, there's a slope for less able-bodied access, steps up otherwise. In through the entrance lobby, and the actual exhibition space is just past the lobby, where you can see look like steps, but I don't think those actually are steps in the distance there. There's also separate access via these steps directly into the suite. So if you're loading and unloading the car, you can bring your car up at the back here and get your stuff straight into the room. There are actually 3 spaces that we've booked. The Inspiration entrance area, which is possibility for turning into a theatre, because you also have direct access into the main hall. And then the main hall can be divided into 2 sections. So it's possible if we, depending on the number of exhibitors we get, we'll either have the show in one half and the theatre in the other. Or if we decide that we need to use the whole of the suite, we can use the much larger space for the exhibition and then have the show theatre in the lobby, as I say, has a separate entrance, so you can go into either or directly through. And between those spaces, we feel that's going to give a similar sort of square footage of show as the previous Wakefield show, and maintain the standard set by Chris in terms of having it at a nice venue, decent hotel with good facilities. The hotel has a swimming pool and leisure facilities, as well as a Starbucks and various eating facilities. In terms of staying, you can stay at the hotel, or if we look at the map, directly over the road, there is a waterside hotel, and the rooms there are sort of Premier Inn type rates. In fact, it was a Premier Inn until it was bought by another company during COVID, and they're revamping and re-announcing. So, you know, if you're after a cheaper stay, possibly we tended to prefer the menu when we were looking at it. Then the waterside offers good food and good prices on room accommodation. For those coming by train, there is North, South, West Coast Main Line. The station is just sort of near where this Patton Arms Hotel is marked. And there is a cut-through walking route directly from the station to the hotel. And going east-west, there is a station, I believe, somewhere in this area on a Liverpool-Manchester line. So you can see the rail symbol there, Warrington Central. That's very slightly further to walk, but basically you come down the main street and then across around the. Oh, that's probably sort of a 20-minute walk, and it's probably 10 to 15 from the other hotel. So hopefully you'll be able to join us on March the 29th for the Riscos North show. We're just sorting out a website, but we've booked the domain riscosnorth.uk, and we've got some helpers who are currently sorting out the website and are going to keep updating it as and when we get new exhibitors and new information. So the idea is to keep it a little bit more active than previous websites that we've done for shows, to try and again up the game and make sure that we do the Wakefield pedigree as proud as we can. So that's the announcement of the new show, and fingers crossed we'll see as many of you as possible there. Now on to computery stuff. The focus for me this summer and autumn has primarily been our Project Next technology and our computers running that. In the previous year, we launched computers like the Hydra and the MiniPi, but those computers come on song with Project Next NVMe storage. Project Next is all about answering the question of how to evolve RISC-OS storage, because with Raspberry Pi technology, you have a very fast processor, lots of fast RAM, but very slow storage traditionally. So your storage is either via SD card or USB, and neither of those provide adequate storage performance for a modern computer system. It's workable, but when you look at what you can do elsewhere and what software tends to expect, then storage performance in the tens of megabytes per second is just not cutting it with when you've got fast processor, fast RAM. So Project Next is all about unlocking the next generation of storage. Obviously, you want it to be faster, but you also want it to be more capable. And the goal is to create something that is expandable, extendable, and gives a proper next generation of storage, which is why we called it Project Next. The IMX6 platform that we've been doing for many years and the Time Machine have focused on the older standard of SATA. And the IMX was the first machine to deliver SATA to RISC-OS, and that's 10 years ago now, I believe. And so the question was, for a next generation machine, people expect something more than what's gone before. So the question was, what represents the next generation of storage in the real world? And the answer is that the NVMe platform, designed specifically for solid state disk, whereas SATA was originally designed for hard disks, and indeed to have a level of backwards compatibility with the IDE hard disks of the time. The early SATA interfaces could actually pretend to be IDE hard disk interfaces in order for the operating system to handle them better. So rather than building on a storage technology designed around mechanical hard drives, we decided that we wanted something based on solid state disk, and that's what NVMe storage is all about. It embraces the fact that modern storage is basically a bunch of flash chips, a bunch of memory chips on a circuit board. And NVMe allows those chips to be mapped into memory directly and data transferred directly across the PCI Express bus at high speed, straight from the memory chips on the drive into the memory of the computer. Since both are memory type technologies, instead of having to base a technology around the idea of rotating spinning disks and optimizing technology for sort of the properties of a spinning disk, there's a whole set of commands in the SATA thing that are based around trying to get the data in the right order because of how the disk spins, for example. NVMe can cut away all the rubbish and focus on delivering high performance directly over memory-to-memory copies across the PCI Express bus. In the real world, PC, Mac, this has now been the standard for probably about, let's say, 5 years, certainly 4 years. And it's a technology that has basically washed away the old SATA interfaces for anything other than sort of legacy hard drives and optical drives. Basically, if you want a system drive or any kind of solid state disk on a modern PC or Mac, you want it via NVMe. And that's what Project Next started as. But of course, the thing is, once you start going down the storage hole on RISC-OS, you realize that actually there's a whole lot of RISC-OS storage that needs attention. The transfer protocol to the drive is one part of it, yes, and that's important for connecting a new device onto a Pi. But the whole of the RISC-OS storage system is in need of into the 20th, well, some might say the 20th century, but certainly the 21st century. And so Project Next expanded to try and expand and extend what was possible with RISC-OS. So it's been developed in a modular manner and based on a system called block devices, which draws inspiration from what is done in other platforms, particularly in the Linux world, but in many modern storage environments. The operating system doesn't need to be fully aware of what each and every device is and how it's connected. Of course, at a hardware level, the drivers need to know these things, but fundamentally, the software layers that make up the operating system want to be divorced from the actual low-level hardware. That way, when you design new software elements, such as partition support, RAID, iSCSI, modern storage technologies, they can be implemented at block level and apply to any driver or device that is connected into the system. And that's what we've developed with the Project Next technology. It's a stack of drivers, and of course, the NVMe storage driver is at the heart of it. But the programmer who worked on this, several programmers in fact, but during development, in order to test the NVMe driver and work and debug problems in the early days, he actually developed a RAM disk-based block device that basically simulated an NVMe drive in RAM. And this simply plugged into the block devices system, gained all of the functionality and features that were present in block devices at the time, and allowed all of the software to be tested in a RAM drive rather than actually needing to be tested on live hardware. In future, any development that plugs into block devices will gain all of the functionality that is already present in the system. So that means that we don't need to reinvent everything every time, which is the current way of doing things on RISC-OS with filing systems. So if you look at present, each filing system, if you go back historically, has had to reinvent the filer, it's had to reinvent the filing system, it's had to the only bit you could really share was FileCore and the disk format, but pretty much everything else had to be reinvented every time almost, which is a highly inefficient way of doing things. And it leads to multiple methods of doing disk partitioning and things. If you look back on all the different podules and things, every podule, although they tended to call it IDEFS back in the day, there were multiple different versions of IDEFS for different podules and different combinations. Similarly, at least 4 different implementations of SCSI that I can think of, probably more, different manufacturers, modules with different capabilities. It was a mess. And yes, our solution is to introduce yet another one, and that's probably equally messy. But at least within this structure, it is an expandable and extendable system that is designed around the same philosophies that you see on other platforms. And the idea is that this is an open source platform so that block devices can be used by anybody. You can go on today and download the block devices source, including examples, and see how the system works. And anybody can make use of that at no extra cost, or no cost at all, because it's open source. Project Next has primarily come out with our computer systems. And it was designed not only to support platforms like Hydra and the Next computers themselves and MiniPi, etc., but also the Pro, and actually the driving force. So when we first announced Project Next, probably about 18 months ago, possibly more, I can't quite remember exactly, it was the Pinebook Pro that was the driving force for the development. And in fact, that was why the programmer originally reached out to me. He said, what I really want to do, Andrew, he said, is get NVMe working on my Pinebook Pro. And so we developed a driver that can work on both the Pinebook Pro hardware and also on the Pi Compute Module 4 hardware for desktop users. And the same driver will work on both platforms. It doesn't require different drivers or anything like that. It's just one size fits all. Load it up, use it. It can be loaded on the fly, even within the desktop. So if you're on a Pinebook, for example, you can actually load the NVMe driver that's on demand. They will just the icons will appear and off you go. The reason you might want to do that is for power management, that NVMe drives will consume a certain amount of power to offer this high performance storage. And if you're running on a battery, you might want to just fire up the drive when you need it rather than firing it up all the time, just on the off chance that you might need it. So it gives you options. Of course, in a desktop computer, you don't really care about that, and you probably want to run your entire system off the NVMe, and that tends to be how we run the computers that we sell, the desktop computers that we sell based on NVMe. Although, to be fair, the last Pinebook I shipped did run entirely from NVMe because that was how the customer wanted to run it. So yeah, I mean, basically you have one Project Next, covering everything from the Pinebook Pro to the various Next boxes we've shows. I haven't got those to hold up because some of them are quite bulky. You've got little computers like the MiniPi. You've got the Hydra, which is currently running behind me, and that's what I shall be doing the rest of my demo on, simply because the Hydra has the most number of features to show in one box. All of the other computers that we offer, ranging from the MiniPi to the various Next boxes, offer essentially a subset of the Hydra functionality, just in different shapes. So the Hydra allows you to have multiple operating systems running at once, and we can show that in the demo, but all the rest of the functionality that you'll see applies to all the other computers too. Some people have pointed out that there are now 2 NVMe drivers available, and there's been a certain amount of disinformation put out concerning that. I want to stress that when we initially launched the NVMe project, as far as I'm aware, there was no other NVMe project in development. And so our first announcements of NVMe, this was the only NVMe project in town. And we needed one to work on both Pinebook Pro and on the compute module. And as far as I'm aware, this is the only technology that does that. Whilst the competing technology is to a point open source, the core modules that would allow us to expand it to work on Pinebook Pro have not, as far as I'm aware, been released as open source at this time, or certainly last time I looked. So it would be impossible for us to achieve what we needed with that technology. So it is necessary for us to develop our own technology. And of course, it's gone beyond just being an NVMe driver, because in order to do the Project Next technology, we needed to develop a whole platform that we've delivered with Project Next. So without further ado, let's jump into a desktop on the Hydra. I connect to that. Okay, do I already have it? Oh, there we are. And let's share that window. Sorry, Zoom has vanished from my desktop. What's going on? There we are. Okay. Share screen. We want to try and share that. Again, hopefully you all have a Hydra desktop on your screen. Thumbs up. Great. Okay, so we are working. So this is basically my Hydra desktop that I've been working on all day, developing the quiz for later. And you can see Project Next here represented by the NVMe 4 icon. You'll see the NVMe drive on the icon bar, of course, and a shared drive here, which is shared between the 2 heads of the Hydra. This machine has basically got one Linux head and one RISC-OS head in it, so we can run RISC-OS and Linux side by. Obviously, most of the time, I tend to run the RISC-OS head and just drop into the Linux head for the things that I can't do on RISC-OS, which these days is not that much now that we've got technologies like Iris allowing me to browse the web, etc. So I'm running on a recent version of the NVMe drivers that have come in from the programmer in the last week or so. This has got some new features which I'll introduce later, and I hope we will be able to issue this in the coming days to all of our existing customers. And I wanted to have something new that you've not seen before in this version. So first, let's see a little quick demonstration of what makes NVMe quite so interesting. So if we look at the media folder, we have some videos. These are quite large files. Typically, I think Big Buck Bunny is knocking on for 300 meg, and the Tears of Steel is about 250. These are big files, and normally when I'm backing them up, I have to sort of sit there grinding my teeth while I copy them to the to a slower medium. If I just bring up something like the system, which is an SD drive, you can see that if I copy this to the SD drive, and this is relatively quick. It normally takes a lot longer than this, so the NVMe driver is actually speeding this phase up as well. But the clue you can see is that the only thing you see there is it's saying writing. You don't see any reading, and that will hint of what's to come. So you can see that took a little while to actually copy that file. There's, you know, as I say, these are big files. They are a bit of a pain. I'm going to copy them to RAM disk because RAM is the fastest disk, and it allows us to minimize the impact of the secondary storage medium that we're copying to. So if I copy this, let's take Big Buck Bunny again, and we drop it into RAM disk. Okay, and it makes me look silly. Should have been a 500 plus meg RAM disk, but there isn't. I thought I'd save that. Oh, I know why. Yes, I made the big RAM disk on. Yes, that relates to another part of the demo, so I'll shut up about that, but there is a reason why that's the case. Okay, let's try again. Still. I'm sure I saw the function window copying the file there. Well, actually, you didn't because it didn't appear. If we copy them both across, which is pretty much what it's going to take to make that file window appear, you can see we've just transferred over 500 meg of data in, well, no time at all. When I first saw that, well, my language was choice. Let's just say that. I was quite impressed. And that's the point of NVMe storage. And the thing is that a lot of this performance also applies to smaller transactions as well as larger transactions. So not only do you see fast speed with big files, but you also see fast speed with smaller files. Not necessarily quite that fast, but certainly much faster than any technology. And that's borne out in times when you're doing things like ROM compiles and the like, where you're dealing with lots of big files, lots of small files, that the NVMe driver gives the fastest possible speeds. I think Chris Hall has benchmarked all of this and seen that basically the Project Next NVMe driver is the fastest storage system currently available, barring RAM disk. And even then, I think we're more or less approaching the RAM disk type of speeds in testing. Indeed, the programmer was talking about wanting to try other disk formats because he thought we got to a point where the file call firing systems were actually the disk format used was actually the limiting factor now, rather than the NVMe drive or what have you. And even as it is, we're approaching the limits of the PCI Express bus on the Pi with what we can achieve with the NVMe driver. If you want to see that a real world example rather than just, oh, the other thing I should probably do is, having copied the media, it's better show that we're not faking this. Let's copy Big Butt Bunny again. And you can see that the video is actually playing from the RAM disk. It has transferred just fine. It's not missing part of the file or anything like that. It is a complete file. And if we copy it back, we can see that writing is more or less as fast. Boom, we're done. So it's not just reading, but we also have high performance on the writing too. In terms of real world performance, if we load up Iris, for example, you can see it loads to the icon bar, well, probably a couple of seconds at the most. And websites just basically come up quickly. It's a bit hard to demo when we're doing it over over the over VNC and what have you, but you can see hopefully that web browsing through Iris is nippy, and if you've used Iris RAM in the past to get faster performance, then you'll sort of hopefully see that basically we're seeing that level of performance, but directly from the main storage drive. So we're not having to use Iris RAM in order to get this level anymore. And that's what it's all about, is delivering the kind of performance across the board so that we can deliver in all areas. You've got fast processing, you've got fast storage, you've got fast networking, you've got high resolution graphics, and making sure that Project Next machines deliver a next generation of performance. And that's basically what it's all about. Now, I said that I'd be showing you things you hadn't seen before tonight. And that's what I shall do next. Although many of you probably haven't seen that level of storage performance just yet. But if we go to demo and I exit the current filer, we'll show that I'm actually hiding something. Because if I double click on that filer and bring up the new file list, you'll see that another icon appeared on the icon NVMe 5. And that's because, as well as supporting 4K disks for large disk support on RISC-OS, which the software does to allow you to access drives up to 2 terabytes, but those have to be specially formatted and converted, and don't necessarily work with things like DOS first, FAT32 first and things, so introduces software compatibility. We support the ability to create multiple RISC-OS partitions on an individual disk. So here we have 2 file core partitions on the NVMe drive, which are coming up as NVMe 4 and NVMe 5, and they're both independently formatted. So you can see I've already copied the Big Butt Bunny onto the drive. I can delete those. Copy them again. You can see how fast it's doing NVMe. And the reason this is attractive is that it allows you to maintain software compatibility with software that to things that expect the traditional 512E disk formats, and allows you to make use of the space on larger drives within the limitations of the traditional RISC-OS file core format. Whilst some will say that it's not great to have 2 drives on one disk, and certainly in terms of data security, having two partitions on the same disk is not as ideal as having 2 separate disks. There are a lot of our customers who like to run the same contents on two partitions, two drives, so that if they mess up one disk, they can revert to a backup copy on the other. And this is absolutely ideal for this, because you could have stuff on NVMe5, and then you can cut, if you happen to mess up your boot sequence, you could copy it back from your copy on NVMe5, or even boot from your NVMe5 if you so desired. You could also split it so that you've got your applications and data on different partitions, and that way if you reformat one, you don't affect the other, which can be useful if you wanted to take things back to square one on your applications disk without affecting your data. In fact, I'm going to demonstrate that because, again, there's been a bit of misinformation about disk formatting too, because if I go to Caution and run hform and then select the NVMe drive and then reformat disk 5, you can see we won't retain the shape, not because we can't, but simply because it's better to show it picking up all of the settings as we go. Format's just initialize. No, yes to bootable. Do you want long file names? Yes. I always double the LFAU, because sometimes the hform gets it a bit low and it can cause problems. And generally speaking, in terms of efficiency, slightly larger is generally better. And if we say yes, we can now see that the drive is blank. We will name that and copy our video files back into it. And you can see there that we can reformat each individual partition independently on the system, and away we go. So there we have high-speed storage, multiple partitions on the disk. And the key thing here is that this partition technology is not just for NVMe first. If we open a task window and we do, you'll see here that what we've got are 3 devices showing as 3 block devices. We've got, and the syntax is rather Linuxy, but it should give you some idea of the philosophy behind what we're trying to design here, because obviously you as a user interact with it in exactly the same normal RISC-OS way. What you're seeing here is the main device, which is a Savant Rocket 500 gig drive. On it is NVMe1. That simply means it's the first NVMe drive on the PCI Express bus. Then devices 2 and 3 are GPT-0 and GPT-1, which are the partitions. GPT is the modern partitioning system that's been around for about 15 years, probably a bit longer than that. Replaced MBR as the way of doing things previously. GPT, this particular module is block devices GPT and implements GPT partition support. So basically it will pick up the GPT partition tables created by other operating systems as well as itself. And you can see here that it's detected 2 partitions. Now, initially this could have had other formats for those partitions, and as long as so they appear in the partition table, which obviously they would if you created them elsewhere, the block devices GPT driver will detect those partitions. So that this isn't RISC-OS specific. This is using standard technology that is available for all other operating systems. And you can see that it's detected GPT part 0 and GPT part 1 in NVMe1 device. Here we have the first NVMe1 device, and then below it we have the 2 partitions, GPT-0, GPT-1, on the NVMe1 device. And block devices allows each registered block device system to connect into this and then benefit from all the other modules that plug in, such as partition support, etc., into the block devices system. So if we look, if we do star modules, and where are we? You'll see right now I'm running block devices NVMe, block devices part GPT, and the NVMe FS component, all connecting together to deliver the technology. If we were to add more block device drivers, then each bit of shared technology will apply to those other drivers and expand the technology accordingly. So, as I say, you could format up a disk using a Linux disk, using something like gparted. You could connect it to RISC-OS, and it would see those partitions in the NVMe driver. And then, providing you've got something that can read those partitions, you could access them on RISC-OS. In this case, we've used HForm to format the partitions in FileCore format, but you could mix and match with other disk formats as you see fit. And of course, as I say, because this all applies to both the Compute Module 4 and the Pinebook Pro, everything you're seeing here on this Hydra demo is equally applicable to the Pinebook Pro, to the next computer, to the MiniPi, to all of the computers in the range. So yeah, that's Project Next in a nutshell. We do computers in a variety of different guises with different functionality like CD drives, extra drives, small case, large case, you name it. There's different variants of the machines to suit the flavor. We also do the Pinebook Pro with and without the NVMe components. We have NVMe drives in stock, as well as the brackets that are required for Pinebook Pro to do NVMe. And since while I'm talking about Pinebook Pros, should stress that they have been formally discontinued in the Far East now, which is not unexpected because most of their other products were moving to a 64-bit platform. But we have bought in a decent stock of Pinebook Pros, so we will be able to service the RISC-OS market into the new year, basically while stocks last. But equally, if you are interested in a Pinebook Pro, I would strongly urge you to buy it sooner rather than later, because if you waited a year, then I can't guarantee we'll have stock of Pinebook Pros 12 months from now. A Pinebook Pro represents one of the fastest RISC-OS machines available, and in a portable format. With Wi-Fi, with NVMe, you can even connect external screens or projectors to it. So awful lot to like with the Pinebook Pro. I'm not going to go into a big Pinebook Pro demo because I've done that before for you all. But in all seriousness, if you have any interest in using RISC-OS away from your desk, your ordinary desk, then you seriously need to look at Pinebook Pro. It's a lovely bit of kit, and with all this technology now baked in, it really is one of the best RISC-OS platforms that we can offer. Now I'm going to pause the sharing for a second. Ask if anybody has any questions about what I've talked about so far. So if you do have questions, if you'd like to unmute yourself, feel free to.
Yes, Andrew, this is Bernard. On my new machine that you've recently sold me, we don't yet have some of these features. Is that because there's the new latest version of the NVMe support will be delivered shortly?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I haven't covered. We have put out a big software update for many of our computers today. We've launched SP23 for Forte, the whole Forte family, so Forte, 42, 42 Mo, etc. For Nextbox, for Pinebook Pro, for MiniPi, basically all of the machines that we've launched last sort of probably 6 years. Of SP23 today. The NVMe enhancements will be rolling out once I've basically run my gamut of tests on them, but expect to see those in the next few days, before Christmas anyway.
Thanks.
Andrew, I've got a question.
Yeah.
I have a Pi 400 gathering dust in a cupboard. I wondered, would it be possible to fit NVMe into a Pi 400, and is there room inside for a disk?
The short answer is no. The original Raspberry Pi and Pi 400, both the connection for the PCI Express bus is taken up by a USB 3 controller chip that is basically hard bolted onto the PCI Express bus. You can't do NVMe on. There's no socket and there's no, those platforms are specifically designed to offer the USB 3 rather than exposing the PCI Express bus properly.
Okay, thanks.
On Pi systems, you need a compute module-based system to benefit. In those, the PCI Express bus is open, and it's down to board manufacturers how they populate the the PCI Express bus. And in many cases, it's either left open for you to plug in an expansion card, or it goes to an NVMe slot directly for you to connect an NVMe drive. We can accommodate both setups.
Okay. So it's on the same. I could fit a SATA drive, presumably, or something on it.
Sorry?
What's my option if I want to use it with a hard drive?
Basically, I'm afraid with the Pi 400, that was the main limiter of that computer. There isn't a good answer to storage on a Pi 400. Your only options are SD card or a USB drive.
Okay, thanks.
And USB on RISC-OS will be limited to about 20 megabytes a second, 20 to 25 megabytes a second. Yeah. And writing will be considerably slower because of the way USB writes are implemented on USB 2 devices. In order to write a byte, you have to read byte 2, and it has to do that in succession. So essentially, you halve the speed when writing.
That's clarified. It will continue gathering dust. I can't even put a camera on it, I found.
No, I mean, on non-RISC-OS platforms, so you want to run Linux on it, you could use the USB 3 ports under Linux, and that does deliver considerably faster performance when using USB 3. But since RISC-OS doesn't have a USB 3 driver, from a RISC-OS perspective, that doesn't help.
Okay.
At the time of the last show, Andrew, you were expecting a delivery of NVMe adapters for the Pinebook Pro. Have they materialised?
Yes, they have. I do remember that I owe you one. And you have actually reminded me, talking about NVMe, another difference with the drivers that we've found in our testing. The NVMe driver that we've developed as part of Project Next is, in our testing, considerably more compatible than we've seen elsewhere. I purchased a lot of different sort of affordable but decent quality NVMe drives from Amazon just as a testing purpose. And of the drives that I purchased, and this could have been fluke, but the reason for purchasing was that I couldn't get my preferred drive that I had been using had gone out of stock temporarily. The new drives that I bought in, none of them would work on the drive that's available from Rule. All of them worked with the Project Next driver out of the box. Now, obviously, that's just a random sampling, and it may be that those drives, they were all from different manufacturers, but it may be that there was some commonality that made them work that didn't, other drives would have been. But the bottom line was that all the drives that I purchased worked with the Project Next driver, which obviously was very pleasing. And going forwards, we hope that we can build on that.
Yep.
Any other questions about the NVMe stuff?
Yeah, Andrew, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is there a limit to the number of partitions that RISC-OS can see?
I'm going to hand over the developer who I can see lurking in the close off icons on the screen. But at the moment, I think it's 4 because it seems to start allocating at NVMe 4, 5, 6, 7. I suspect there's no particular reason we couldn't use 0, 1, 2, 3, but as well. But Chris, do you want to say anything on that?
I've got nothing to.
Any particular?
Sorry, it's Parkour limits you to 4. Really, you can push it to 8 if you use the floppy drives, which I think SDFS can do. But yeah, that's your limit. Is basically what Parkour imposes. The block device, you have as many possessions as you like, but you're going to run out of drives to allocate to them.
Okay, thank you. So, and Andrew, my other question then was, is there a maximum size of the drive that can be fitted?
I think the maximum size of the drive, if you want to use it as a single partition and it's 4KN compliant, you could do up to 2 terabytes. If you're using it as most drives ship as 512E, then if you're formatting them as RISC-OS format partitions, you are still limited to 256 gigabytes per partition because of the limitations of an individual file core partition. In theory, you could probably do 4 2 terabytes onto a 8 terabyte drive.
Yeah.
If done KN, then you would need to be we'd probably need to do a new partitioning formatting tool to combine both 4KN partitioning, 4KN formatting and multi-partition formatting to 4KN, which we haven't yet done. So I hope that's the right. Yes, Chris is saying in chat, you could in theory have 4 times 2 terabyte, I guess.
Yeah.
In practice, I see this as more aimed at sort of 512 and 1 terabyte type devices as a way of sort of not losing compatibility with FAT32 and DOSBus, etc. So it's sort of making better use of space under RISC-OS without doing anything, I wouldn't say naughty, but doing anything unexpected in terms of disk shape on RISC-OS. So it's basically giving people a choice of ways of doing things. And as I say, quite a few people do like the idea, I know from the past, of having sort of split drives for data and apps, or as I say, having the same thing twice on the drive and using something like SafeStore to mirror them together, so that, you know, if something horrible goes wrong, then they know they've got a working backup copy on the other drive.
Okay, thank you.
Will your NVMe software work on a titanium?
I would like to say yes. There are a couple of, but the answer right now is no. In theory, it ought to be able to do it. I think the limiting factor at the moment is the fact that it's been developed for systems where the only thing on the PCI Express bus is the NVMe drive, whereas on a titanium you have two slots, and therefore could have multiple devices on the. Sorry. So you could have multiple devices on the titanium PCI Express bus. Having said that, I'm not entirely sure that it would be that beneficial on a titanium, because each PCI slot on a titanium, I believe, runs at the slowest possible speed. I think they're PCI 1 slots, 1 by 1 slots, if I remember rightly, which would probably limit you to about, well, back of an envelope, 200, 250 megabytes a second, I suspect. So it would probably be slightly more efficient than the SATA drives on there. You might see a doubling in performance over the SATA drives that they supply, but it certainly wouldn't be as pronounced as it is on the Project Next computers and other platforms, simply because they have more PCI Express lanes going to the drive. I think it's I think you get, if I remember rightly, it's 2 PCI Express lanes on a Compute Module 4, and on the Pinebook Pro you get 2 PCI Express 2 lanes, so effectively double the performance again, potentially, although in practice you tend to get less. So
you wouldn't get much of an increase in speed, but you'd get the partitioning and various other features.
You would. And never say never. I mean, certainly that was one of my first thoughts was titanium. So, you know, we're thinking along the same wavelengths, but we've tended to so far focus our efforts on getting the stuff working with the target platforms and working well, rather than sort of diverging into adding additional platforms. It's sort of, when you're developing things, you have to sort of you have to choose a direction to go in, and the titanium was a direction too far at the stage we were at so far. But that doesn't mean that we won't do it in future. Obviously, it'd be nice to support all the machines that support PCI Express in one driver. So
thank you very much.
So watch this space, I suppose, is the answer, but I don't want to make promises I can't keep. Okay, that sounds like we've run out of questions for now. So I will move back to the system and continue on with things. So let's screen share to the Hydra desktop. I noticed somebody in chat saying that the desktop a wee bit high resolution for YouTube and that we ought to go for 1080p. Oh, while I'm at it, this is running our new high refresh rate monitor drivers that we launched at the London show. You can get this on Pling Store. It's a pack that basically contains high refresh rate monitor drivers and various application software for for use with monitors that we've released over the last few years for our different platforms. So you get things like the bad screen recovery software. You get screen drivers for everything from titanium, IMX6, Pi, etc., unlocking all sorts of additional screen modes. In titanium, you get the dual head software that we produced in association with LSR. To allow multi monitors, and includes all the multi-monitor definitions and things that we've developed. Also, speed video software that we did for Final Cut Pro, etc. But that also works on other platforms to allow you to add USB drivers, and that again builds on the excellent software that was produced by Jeffrey Lee, and adds a nice desktop front end to that to allow you to configure and various monitor screen modes for USB video devices, and that's all included in the high refresh rate pack. Now, the high refresh rate pack thing itself relates to the fact that modern monitors, that if you go out and buy a monitor these days, the chances are it will do a lot more than just 60 frames a second, which is what traditionally we've seen on RISC-OS. And even if you use the EDID stuff, chances are that with high refresh rate monitors, etc., it'll screw up and give you either an unusable desktop or something that's not ideal. So, for example, we bought a variety of high refresh rate and monitors recently for testing purposes. In almost every case, it dumped us back to either 640, 480, or sometimes we get 1080p at 30 frames a second, or sometimes we get the actual native resolution at 30 or 60. It wasn't good compared to what the hardware was capable of. These were monitors that were capable of up to, well, in some cases beyond 275 frames a second. And for example, the super wide monitor we were showing at the London show, the OLED super wide, can do 100 hertz or higher. But basically, that didn't work with EDID on RISC-OS. So we've developed our monitor definition files for high refresh rate. Yeah. And you can see here that at 1080p, we can go up to 175 frames a second on a Raspberry Pi system. You basically these to suit your monitor, but you can see you've got 175, 165, 140, 220, 175. And even if you're just going for, say, a 75 hertz monitor, which, you know, even basic ones these days will do 75 hertz rather than 60, you're getting a substantial smoother desktop experience. I can't really demonstrate that over the Zoom because there's just not the performance in the Zoom connection. But those who tried it at the show saw a smoother, faster desktop, less blurry. When you're dragging windows around, the contents don't blur out so much. And it's just a generally smoother, nicer experience. When obviously, if you buy a monitor from us, you'll get the suitable software with it. Or you can buy the drivers separately and get all of the software. I think it's about £15 on Thing Store for the lot. I'm just going to run at 60 hertz for this demo. And so it should just drop us down to that.
Thank you, Andrew.
The super wide mode, where, as I say, we've got 30 frames a second, came out of the EDI. You can see that we can push the Raspberry Pi as high as 94. What we found was that you get the higher you get, the fussier the Pis become, and they basically don't like clocking to certain frequency combinations as things get higher and higher and higher. So we couldn't push it to actually 100 hertz. It wouldn't clock. We would just basically, the Pi would seem to lock up when we tried to push it that far. So we managed to settle on a 94 frames a second screen mode for the Pi. Now, modern monitors often also have something called variable refresh rate, VRR, which allows them to clock to smoothly to other non-divisible modes. So that can also help in terms of improving smoothness as well. And you can see the different refresh rates that we can kick out at sort of these super wide modes. 4K, which is a common mode, you can see is still limited to 60 hertz. That's down to the bandwidth available on the Pi. But we've also added, you can see in between here, a number of additional screen modes in the range between 1080p and 4K, which allows a certain amount of scaling to occur. And that can actually make 4K usage on RISC-OS far more useful, because if you actually try and use 4K on a 27-inch to a 32-inch type display, let alone anything smaller, everything's really, really tiny. I would say borderline unusable unless you've got really, really good eyesight. Certainly, I couldn't use it when I tried a 27, 28. It was just too small for me to use sensibly. Introducing the additional screen modes which also have higher refresh rates as well. Oops, that's a bad example. Look at that one. You can see we can go to 75 refresh rates there, etc. Basically allows you to unlock up to 90 hertz at that one. It basically means that you can make better use of 4K screens on RISC-OS by virtue of having screen resolutions in between that mean that things aren't as tiny. And that can also help going upwards from, say, 1080p and 2560 as well, because you'll often find that as your eyesight deteriorates, a screen that was very readable at 1080p a few years ago has started to become a bit harder to read. And so you can, for example, use something like 1808 by 1130. Well, actually, in 16:9 format, we've got 1728 by 972. We've got 1600 by 900, 1368 by 768, etc. We've got in-between screen modes that allow us to scale the desktop slightly and make everything a bit more readable, even on a 1080p ordinary 60 hertz screen. And obviously, if you are running with, you don't want to buy a new monitor, having those extra screen modes available to you can be beneficial. And of course, none of that is exposed via EDID, which will generally only display a handful of screen modes, typically sort of legacy modes plus whatever the screen is designed to run at. So having all the extra screen modes available in these monitor definition files is obviously really helpful. So, yeah, that's the monitor pack that we launched at the show. You can use that on any machine. To say the support for anything for obviously it adapts to its the capabilities that are on offer with that will depend on the machine. So if you're running on a titanium, modes that are available will be different to, say, an IMX6 or a Raspberry Pi. So you're not going to get sort of 175 hertz on a IMX6 or titanium because of the bandwidth available for the graphics is half that of a Raspberry Pi, but you will still get the wide range of screen modes. The titanium, you get the dual monitor support and so on. So there's basically lots of good stuff depending on which platform you're using, whether it's IMX6 or Pi or titanium or RK3399 platforms like Pinebook and Rocky Raid. There's basically good stuff in there for all of them. Okay, so moving onwards again, I promised in the announcement that there was going to be a significant update for a major application, and that major application is Photodesk. We are launching version 3.24 of Photodesk, which may have the longest change list of any version of Photodesk, probably since the Space Tech era. Possibly longer than that, quite frankly, I don't know. But you can see that if I load the change list, it is, well, quite lengthy. In simple terms, we've been going through Photodesk. We have a new developer helping us with that, which is really, he's done some really amazing work. Thank you. And basically Photodesk, the guy who wrote the manual for Photodesk had highlighted, I think, 24 bugs that are developing the manual, sort of fairly definitive list of faults that somebody who's used every aspect of the program could find. And this update, we'd already tackled a couple of them in the previous update, but I think we're now at around 20 of 24, maybe even 21 of 24 fixed in the latest version. So I think we're making a pretty big dent in the faults, and we've also improved, made a number. If you look at the enhancement section rather than the bug fixes, there's quite a lot of additional work gone into supporting high memory machines, allowing for large images. There's updated JPEG, updated GIF formats, enhancements to all of the different loaders, savers. There's support for Google's WebP graphics format in this version, and all the special effects plugins. We've gone into them. We've updated the translations for German. We've got to do French, do the French version. If David's still here, David, could you drop me an email and we can do a French Photodesk or something? That would be good. Basically, all the help systems have been revamped again, so it can be internationalized. There's improvements to the masking system. If you've got multiple alpha channels, they're now all properly labeled, so you can actually see which one's which, rather than just having lots of alpha channels all not alpha. There's user interface enhancements, some standardization of behaviors across all the special effects plugins. There's a whole bunch of it's a major revamp on Photodesk. Even the startup banner got work done to it. So there'll be some internal changes to the structure of the program. And as part of that, we built a new source tree for the program so that all the different parts of it are now properly in source tree and up to date. So it's really moving Photodesk forwards. And the brilliant thing is that this is a free update for anybody who's bought it in the last couple of years since XAT took it on. Essentially, we're not charging for updates. So and even the upgrade policy for that version is designed to be as generous as possible. So basically, rather than demanding you have a specific version to qualify for upgrade pricing, we just literally said anybody who has ever used Photodesk, even if you pirated it or something, if you've used Photodesk, you qualify as an upgrade, and you can still buy it at full price if you wish. But basically, anybody who has used it in any shape or form can upgrade to this version for I think £29. No questions asked, and on the XAT version, the state came out probably a couple of years ago now. All the updates subsequently have been free. So I think 3.18 was the first XAT version, and all the versions in between have been free updates, including the revamp manual and everything. Contrast this to the past where versions seem to always cost a certain amount of upgrade money. We hope that this is, a nice payback for those who have chosen to buy the upgrade to the XAT edition. And yeah. Yeah. Difficult to know what to say about Photodesk because you've all probably seen it before, but basically just a lot of enhancements and all for free if you've already got it. So yeah, hope to get that out today. It didn't make it because I was trying to get the quiz web ready. So again, hopefully this week on the 324 zip going live. Basically, all that's left for me to do is just sort of make sure that it's sort of merged the new version into the old zip with all the manual and stuff like that, and make sure all the sort of change logs are match up, etc. And then upload it to Pling Store and make sure that the changes are referenced on Pling Store, etc. So it's just the bookkeeping is needed to get that out. Otherwise, functionally, that is ready to ship. While we're on Hydra, the bit the Hydra I didn't show was the multi operating system element of Hydra. So basically, Hydra provides me with access to a Linux system within, and you can have up to 6 heads in a Hydra. I think Mac actually supports a 4-headed one. With a variety of configurations, but the normal configuration is a dual-headed Hydra for Linux and RISC-OS. You can run some x86 software via Wine on the Linux. We have had Uniprint and things working, which is a Windows program, running on a Hydra, picking up when I ran Uniprint on it, it automatically, without any fuss, just auto-detected my brother network printer. It picked it up, added it to the list, and I was able to Uniprint to it basically with zero configuration. I just pointed Uniprint at the Hydra head. I didn't have to set the printer up at all. It just worked, and when I hit print in my RISC-OS application, it popped out of the brother printer. So that was pretty cool. Although in most cases, because you've got each head, you're probably not going to run x86 stuff on the heads normally, simply because of the performance overhead of emulating x86 code on an ARM processor. But it is something that is possible if you have specific x86 programs that you need to run on a Hydra head. Otherwise, it means you can do things like running Chromium. I'm showing YouTube simply because this is something that would not do video on Iris. So you can see a video running there, just a sort of example thing. You can also do things like running LibreOffice. So if we look at our shared drive, Hydra Share, I thought I had a LibreOffice document in there. But we go into Office, and LibreOffice Writer. So basically, we can run LibreOffice on we can run something like LibreOffice on a RISC-OS machine in a window on the desktop. I had it running full window last time I tried it, but I just need to scale up the thing. But you get the idea. And then we save that file, save as, and we've got things like the Hydra shared drive is mounted in the standard save boxes in here, so it's easy to save our file into. If we save it into something that we can do on RISC-OS, save it as, and then save that.
Yeah.
And then if we click on the shared drive on the icon bar, we can see there's the RTF file that we have just saved in Linux. And we load that into Fireworks. And then okay, it didn't do that last time I tried. Oh, it's probably because the document is still open in Linux. So if we file and close. And there we can see that the document that we saved out of LibreOffice is loaded into Fireworks. In practice, you'd probably do it the other way around. You would have something like Messenger Pro, and you'd save a Word document or PowerPoint or something that you can't handle on RISC-OS very well into your shared drive. That's why we put the RISC-OS user guide in there. And then you can go to your Hydra Linux and or you can just load the user guide. That's the RISC-OS user guide loaded in. I imagine that was a Word document or something that was that had come through via email, and you can then access that and you can print it or what have you on the Hydra head. The purpose here is basically to give you access to a broad range of software without having to reboot your machine and be able to do everything in real time on your desktop, transferring backwards and forwards the files. The storage on the Hydra is, in each Hydra head is NVMe based, so you can have up to 6 NVMe drives in the system, and each NVMe drive is shareable to the other heads. And that also allows you to use higher capacity disks than RISC-OS would normally allow, because they can then be shared as shared drives via the 64-bit Linux heads. So, for example, quite a common configuration for a Hydra is to have a 1 terabyte Linux drive, then shared back to RISC-OS. So your RISC-OS drive would give you one or more sort of 255, 256 gig RISC-OS partitions, plus access to a terabyte or more of Linux storage as well, which you could obviously back up to or use to store large data files, photograph libraries, etc. And that just appears with the shared icon on the icon bar, which is that being accessed there through ClusterFuss. Basically, that's what Hydra is all about, and it is an upgradable system, and as I say, shares the same DNA and software updates and everything with the whole of the range of machines. So basically, you can combine features across different machines. You can have multiple operating systems. You can have the latest and greatest RISC-OS features, all fully upgradable either through our own software updates that we issue, which are basically based on the rule builds, or you can use a rule nightly build with it. There's no limitations with these machines, and basically it's your choice. If you like to goof around and have the latest nightly build in, that's absolutely fine. If you prefer to have the curated builds that we put out, that's also fine. So, there's plenty of choice here. Yeah. I think that's probably a good place to stop for the section of the demonstration. So once again, I'm going to stop the share. And did anybody have any questions on stuff that I've shown in this section of the talk?
Andrew, you mentioned
Yes.
Pling Store. Have the problems with uploading stuff to Pling Store been sorted out?
No, I'm afraid if you are uploading, you do need to either contact me or contact Alan Wrigley. Essentially, there was a server upgrade by the hosting company last month, and they basically kiboshed the server platform that we were running on, such that the Apache installation stopped working. So the actual Pling Store database and the actual back end of Pling Store is running fine, but the web stuff, web front end, has basically been thumped by the platform upgrade. And Alan managed to get there's other stuff working by altering references in things, but apparently Pling Store is proving the hardest of them all to fully restore. But in the meantime, if you do have updates to software, just send them through to either myself or Alan Wrigley, and we will get the software updated on Pling Store. Sorry for the inconvenience this is causing. We are looking at other alternatives longer term to get things back on track, but none of them are sort of quick fixes. So yeah, there's challenges ahead just sorting that out. To be fair, the fact that Alan's managed to get some of his other sites working again, I'm just sort of quietly hopeful that we'll be able to restore functionality, but I don't want to make a promise I can't keep again on that. So that's one of the, in all honesty, that's the other aspect of why I didn't get the Photodesk update out today, was that by the time it would have been ready, there would have been sort of 10 minutes around to get it up and live, and I didn't want to put him under that kind of pressure to get it out. So,
thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got a few questions, Andrew.
Go for it, John.
Right, I start with Photodesk.
Yep.
I read through as best I could those enhancements. I didn't spot one that I've been waiting for years. That Photodesk has a very annoying feature that when you use the magnifying glass by drawing a box to magnify, it resizes the window. Which is
right.
really makes me curious. You size the window to say sort of 6 inches by 6 inches, and then you go in and suddenly it's about 24 inches by 24 inches.
Okay, I have no idea. I think that's one way. If you notify me via email, I will forward it to the programmer and see if we can get that on the list of things to look at.
Okay, I'm sure it can't be a difficult one to fix, and no one's.
I mean, I've been amazed at what the programmer has managed to achieve in a relatively short amount of time. And obviously, the more he works on it, the more familiar he's getting with the code and so on. So, fingers crossed.
Because he needs a user who's using it all the time.
Oh yeah, that's why we focused on what the manual author's feedback was, because he'd been going. Chris Terran is pretty much the world expert on Photodesk, although it sounds like you might be too. As you say, it's only by talking to people who have sort of used it in anger that you really
anger is the right word there, Andrew.
Yeah, exactly. I chose the word with
I tear my hair out. Not much left.
To find out what needs to be done. So
I'll report that by email to you. Thanks.
I mean, obviously, no promises on anything because it's not me doing the work, and what appears easy may be difficult, and what appears difficult may be easier. But we are trying to sort of beat down the list of bugs and really push Photodesk forwards.
I would call it a bug because I think windows are supposed to say the same size and look at the same thing unless you change them deliberately, and it doesn't. Photodesk resizes its window whenever you change the magnification. And and if you go up, it fills the whole screen and wipes out everything behind it. But that's okay. I'll report that one. I've got a couple of questions on the Hydra. They're both rather daft questions in a way, but they mean something. Is there such a thing as a Pi 5 compute module, and can you fit one in a Hydra?
Okay, so the answer is yes to that. There is such a thing as a Pi 5 compute module. They came out last week.
Right.
And as to their compatibility, this is an interesting one, and I haven't tried one. They are both compatible and incompatible in the same breath, I think is the short answer. And until we've actually plugged one in to see, we won't fully know. Pinout wise, they are supposed to be the same pinout as compute.
Okay, well, I'm looking at a Hydra with, and this is another question. Can I put two RISC-OS?
You can have two RISC-OS heads, yes.
If I was thinking of two RISC-OS on 4 and a Linux running on Pi 5 and all talking happily together.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm being funny about the Pi 5 is simply because whilst the pinouts are the same, their Pi 5 has native USB 3, whereas the Pi 4 didn't. And what I'm concerned about is what will happen if you plug a Pi 5 USB 3 into a socket designed for a Pi 4, which ran with USB 2. I mean, worst case scenario, you probably wouldn't get any USB, which probably wouldn't be the end of the world. But I don't know how fundamental that difference is in terms of, if it's going to overload things by putting the wrong signals down a line or something, then that could cause unpredictability. So I don't want to tell you that you absolutely can, but when they launched the Pi 5 compute module, they did say that they were sticking to the same format of boards, and that fundamentally the pinout was the same stroke similar. So all I can say is we shall see.
You'll look into it then, because I would be quite interested in a new machine with that sort of spec.
I mean, I agree with you that it would be nice if that was possible. It's one of those things where motherboard is designed for the Pi compute module 4. Right. So I don't know what will happen in future. And similarly, with going forwards with motherboards, whether the motherboards designed for compute module 5 will allow you to plug a compute module 4 in. I don't.
Fine.
Again, we shall see.
And the next question is sort of a left field question. VNC is becoming increasingly important these days. Mm-hmm. Have you any plans to remove some of the kludginess? Is it within your sort of field? I mean, it's a bit kludgy.
I mean, it's not risen to the top of the pile of things to look into just yet, and I wouldn't want to tread on anybody's toes. So, but I mean, I know that at one stage Adrian Leese was doing something. His name, he developed a VNC, a sort of multi-device VNC viewing application. I'm not sure he ever actually got it released. So there has been some. There has been some. Yeah, sorry, brain's been at me for a second. Yeah, so Adrian did some work developing VNC further for RISC-OS, but I don't know where it stands in terms of a release. We've also seen further work by the Avalanche guy to improve Avalanche in the last few years. I believe that's all hosted through GitHub now or similar. So, the scope for enhancing it there. But obviously, with that being open source application, we'd want to do it in collaboration with the original author and make sure that it would probably be more of a RISC-OS development's hat than speaking of which I've just realized that my profile says RISC-OS developments. Yikes, I'm not talking about RISC-OS developments today. How do I change that? rename.
There are various things in the chat about hydras and.
Okay, that's better. So yeah, I would say that would probably be something that we'd want to do as a risk cost developments thing, so that the community benefits rather than being an RComp thing.
Yeah.
To make it. Yeah, I think it would be something that would want to be a community release, shall we say, rather than an RComp release.
Okay, thanks. That ends my questions.
Yeah.
Andrew, I've got a question.
Yeah, go for it, Gavin.
About the Hydra, you've just shown in your demo the cluster filing system. Can you tell me a bit about that? How fast is it basically compared to, say, Landman?
It's similar performance. It's basically because Landman 98 is now open source. It's just a variant of Landman 98 that we did for the we did for the Hydra, so that it's sort of tailored to that, but it's not. There's not a significant performance difference.
No. Okay,
it's just sort of a bit of a Hydra specific software that we did to make life easier for folks.
So if you were running that, I presume then that has mounts. You can mount other systems.
Yes, it works quite happily alongside and with all the other network filing systems.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Okay, so I haven't been keeping track of what's been going on in chat, unfortunately. So
well, Andy seems to say you can't mix the 4 and the 5, if I understand what he's written there.
I'm seeing that he said CMI5 IO board does not work with CM4. That doesn't surprise me, although it's a shame they didn't make it backwards compatible. So basically, if you plug a Compute Module 4 into the latest CM5 IO board, that's it's expecting onboard USB 3 rather than onboard USB 2. I think this goes back to your question, and it would be a sort of try it and see type thing as to whether or not you could plug a CM5 into the motherboard and actually get any sensible results. Okay, so I think it's time for a quiz now. Time to win yourself some software just by entering. Yeah. So let's go back to goodbye to Richard Asprey. Let's go to share screen. Yeah. And
yeah.
So if we go to demo and go to the quiz and run this. So basically how this is going to work is you'll need a pencil and paper or a text window or something to record your answers. And basically what I'd like you to do is to record your answers in a window and then send an email to rcomp@rcomp.co.uk. I'll repeat that at the end. And send your answers to us at rcomp@rcomp. Anybody who sends answers will get their choice of one of 3 pieces of software. And if you manage to get all the answers correct, then you will be able to get a copy of Photodesk or Data Power 3 or Fireworks Pro. So basically, answer all the questions right, get an expensive piece of software, get none of them right, and you still walk away with some cheaper software. So basically, everyone's a winner, and that seemed to be the Christmas spirit, as it were. Oops, let's try again.
Be a good title for a song, that, Andrew.
So, question 1. That's hopefully a fairly easy one. Which is the most recent computer that we've launched? Next, Pinebook, or IMX6?
Yeah.
Well, what I'll do is I'll go through all the questions and then do it again a second time, so that if you missed the answers, you can go. We'll go through on second run. Question 2. Which is the most modern storage technology? Answer A, SATA. Answer B, IDE. Or answer C, NVMe. Question 3. Project Next is powered by which architecture? Answer A, Acorn ADFS. B, block devices. Or C, SCSI. Question 4. Which of these is not a feature of Project Next? Answer A, floppy disk controller. Answer B, disk partitions. Or answer C, support for large drives. Again, this is which is not a feature. Question 5. Who originally published Photodesk? Was it A, CJE Micros, B, Spacetech, or C, Photodesk Limited? Question 6. I should say that there are 12 questions in total. Which birthday did RComp celebrate this year? Was it A, 30 years, B, 33 years, or C, 25 years?
Yeah.
Question 7. Which software application launched alongside HTML edit and shortcuts at our first show in London many years ago? Was it A, Sightseer, B, Locksmith, or C, Textures? Question 8. What is the name of our Windows RISC-OS hybrid computers? Is it A, RISC-Cube, B, RISC-Cube, or C, RISC-Cube, but with a different punctuation? Question 9. They get slightly harder now. When did we launch our first RISC-OS 5 computer? Was it A, 2008, B, 2009, or C, 2010? Question 10. Which was RCI's first product? Was it A, PC Sound Professional, B, Doom, or C, a graphics tablet? Question 11. Before RComp, Andrew released special needs software under which brand? Andrew Rawnsley Computing, Ovisoft, or C, Risky Business? Question 12. Which mascot character appeared on our stand at many RISC-OS shows? Was it A, Mr. Teapot, B, Archie the Ox, or C, Rama the Sheep? And finally, a tie-break question, which is really just to make me smile. I want you to just, if you wouldn't mind, putting an answer to this starter. RISC-OS is ideal for Christmas because, and I'll see if I can do a special prize for whoever makes me smile, stroke laugh the most in response to that tie-break question. Now your prize is, if you enter it, you can choose lock screen, delegate, or clock save, and a free copy of any one of those products. So please specify in your email which of those products you would like to receive. And if you get every question right, or nearly every question right, probably, because I know that near the end there was some tricky ones. Tell me whether you like Photo, Data Power, or Fireworks Pro. Now, in all fairness, it is one piece of software per person. If you get them all right, all of the programs, Photodesk, Data Power, and Fireworks Pro, you can choose to have one of the other three. So you don't lose out by getting them all right if you want one of the other three and you've got those ones. But equally, if you do get them all right, then obviously these programs are considerably more expensive to buy than the other ones. So let's just rattle through those again so that you can just double check your answers, and if you missed anything, you can get it. Question 1, what was the most recent computer, Next, Pinebook, or IMX6? Question 2, which is the most modern storage connection, SATA, IDE, or NVMe? Question 3, Project Next is powered by which architecture, Acorn ADFS, Block Devices, or SCSI? Question 4, which is not a feature of Project Next, floppy disk controller, disk partitions, or support for large drives? Question 5, who originally published Photodesk, CJ Micros, Space Tech, or Photodesk Limited? Question 6, which birthday did Arcomp celebrate this year? Was it 30 years, 33 years, or 25 years? Question 7, which launched alongside HTML in shortcuts? Sightseer, Locksmith, or Textures? Question 8, the name of our Windows RISC-OS computers. Was it RISC-Cube, RISC-Cube, or RISC-Cube? Question 9, when did we launch our first RISC-OS 5 computer? Was it 2008, 2009, 2010? What was RCI's first product? PC Sound Pro, Doom, or a graphics tablet? And before Arcomp, what did I sell my software as? Was it Andrew Rawnsley Computing? Was it Ovisoft? Or was it Risky Business? And finally, which mascot character appeared on our stand at many RISC-OS shows? Was it Mr. Teapot, Archie the Ark, or Rama the Sheep? Tiebreaker, RISC-OS is ideal for Christmas because fill in the gap. And then your choice of product, lock screen, delegate, clock save, Photodesk, Data Power 3, or Fireworks Pro. And there we go. So if you'd like to send those to Arcomp at Arcomp, that's RCOMP each time, Arcomp at arcomp.co.uk. What I will do is I will put those software applications up for download and send you links to your winning software or whatever you choose. So I wish you all good luck. And as I say, everybody who enters will get a prize. If you make me smile on the tiebreaker, then I may find something special as well.
You might want to specify a time limit.
Good point. Probably end of the week. Yes, let's say by Friday. Because really, I only want it to be people who actually attended the meeting rather than just anybody who sees it on YouTube and fancies some free software.
Oh, believe me, the video won't be up before the end of the week. I have other things to do, you know. I'm trying to have a life now, you know. Can you just remind me the email address, Andrew?
It's Arcomp, RCOM for mother, P for Peter, at rcomp.co.uk.
Excellent.
And at the end of the day, if you did want to substitute any piece of software, I might even tolerate that. As I say, the idea was just to give people some free software as a thank you for attending the meeting, and because it's Christmas.
Yay.
So, yeah. Hockey dock. And with that, I think pretty much that's the end of the talk. I think we covered quite a lot of ground tonight, and thank you for bearing with me. We've done over an hour and a half, so thank you everybody for listening and staying awake through, hopefully staying awake through the whole thing. Were there any final questions from anybody, or are we all done?
Any more questions? Any more questions? Roll up, roll up. Santa wants to answer questions. Oh, and Andrew, one general question. Are you putting a general announcement out about the new show location, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I'd hope to get that out today. That's another thing I didn't get done today. Today has been a bit of a rush to get everything demonstrated. Needless to say, I left everything to the last minute, and then today has just been a get ready for tonight day. But my intent was that we would have a general announcement on CSA announced in the news groups today, so it'll probably go out tomorrow. And obviously we need to talk to some of the Wakefield guys about sort of handling it, the transition, etc., from Wakefield to Riscos North. And as I say, we would like to involve the Wakefield people as much as possible in the new event wherever we can. It's a bit different to the Southwest show, so we're trying to keep the standard, because the Wakefield show lost the best show of the year award, so we've got a lot to live up to in terms of trying to deliver a really good show.
Well, to be honest, I think I said to you that the problem with Wakefield Place is still occupied by migrants. And Bradford, they just effectively quadrupled the charges for the hire of the room. So, Time Maker, apparently Bradford is City of Culture next year, so they can see they can make lots of money out of people. And they just priced them out of the market for us. There's no way we could afford it.
No, I mean, you told me the prices and it was just obscene. I mean, as it is, the venue we're doing is more expensive than the Southwest show venue was, which was already...
Yeah.
We were already having to pinch tight to do it. I mean, as it stands, it's probably Richard and I are probably going to be putting a bit of the bill like you guys used to do in recent years for the Wakefield one. We've already had people sort of asking if they can have a free stand. It's sort of really when we're trying to get it done. But it's hopefully we can live up to the.
Well, it seems to be in a good location.
Well, it's a location and one that we can.
It's a location, but it's a fair central thing near to rail station.
That was it. I mean, we looked at a few places on both sides of the. Richard's daughter Serena was going through a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
Crewe was a popular location because of the rail links, but the prices.
Well, you've got Warrington Bank Quarry, the main one on the west coast, and Warrington Central on the effectively down to Pennine route. So.
And we wanted to stay on roughly the same sort of geographical parallel with Wakefield in terms of still being a northern show. If we'd gone down to Crewe, it would have
Yeah, Bradford. The problem with Bradford was partly public transport as well, because it was on the edge of the edge of the congestion zone or whatever. But also there wasn't fantastic public services from the station, because there's only not many direct trains into Bradford. It's a major city. It's ridiculous, but there we go.
Well, yes, I mean, it's always difficult.
We can win. All we can do is hope yours, the Wiscombe North goes well.
Well, yeah, I mean, we shall see. There is, I mentioned the place to stay for less across the street. That does also have a room associated with it. So if things don't go well this year, then maybe next year we'll be on the room there. But then we're very much room on the back of a pub, and it's a nice room that they do weddings in. But we really want to be a nice hotel suite is definitely nicer than room on the back of a pub, and that's what for the first year we absolutely wanted to try and keep the standards the same that as what you did for Wakefield, and that meant having the nice venue and location. As I say, if we need to go across the road next year, then it's an option. Oh, bye, Giles.
So yeah.
Well, we shall see.
Andrew, thanks for the heads up on all your recent work. Sounds quite interesting. I have to try and find some time to come over and see you at that next show.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you.
I get so tied up with things.
You've been, I give you and Vince a shout out for the stuff you've done towards helping for this show as well. So thank you.
I've got some more things I wish to do. There's loads of something to go and see. Lots of reasons for people to come up, which I hope motivates people. I'm quite surprised at some of the things around there. So I'm tempted to go up there because I was going to do a video and a leaflet as well for you, and try and do some promo here and there.
Oh, super. I mean, you're very welcome, and we've probably got a spare route. Well, if you need one, we have a spare in the back.
Okay, we're getting. So I once went to a Wakefield, gave a talk, 5 hours drive up there and 3 hours drive back in one night because the road was blocked for 2 hours. So that was quite epic. I don't know if I really should be doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, let's just say you don't have to. But
thank you.
I mean, there's quite a few things around. There's the North and West Computer Museum, which is, well, you need a car to do that one, but it is probably only 20 minutes by car from the, probably even 15 to 20 minutes by car from the hotel. In Manchester, you've got things like the Science and Industry Museum and the Natural History Museum in Manchester. You've got Liverpool nearby with all the sort of Beatlesy stuff, if that's your...
Keys, which you have to, because I'm obviously in connection with it, what this is helping you with, I need to know other places I can throw leaflets at.
Yeah.
What was that one?
In terms of leaflets, really the Northwest Computer Museum is the only one that immediately springs to mind.
Well, you got the hotel itself, and also the hotel where people might be staying, because I did that last time. And where you can get interested people who are interested in stuff to wander along. You work with a few places, but yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, the audience at the hotel, I have to say, didn't feel a particularly ROCC audience. They were a place that has sort of check-ins via tablets and
perfect place for RISCos to have it on our check-in system.
Crowd working environments and various,
Sure. You don't know who's going through though. Never say never. And if we don't attract some of these people, then we've got to do the legwork. Yeah.
And one of the ROD mission statements is to is expanding the RISCos market wherever we can. So yeah, absolutely.
Quick random thought. I was making notes. I'm sorry to be a bit left field. Is anybody looking at just-in-time compilation translation stuff? Arch 64, because that's what Windows does basically in terms of how it runs its mostly not Windows applications.
I think I better take my hat off because the hat was intended to be an RComp hat, and
have you got another hat you can put on your head just to keep consistency?
The rule is I have an RComp hat, and when I start talking RISCos developments, I have to take my hat off.
That sounds very, very wise. I just wondered if anyone was looking at it because it's less complicated and go to create.
Well, people like to complain if I don't make it.
That's fair enough.
So, oh yeah, somebody's saying maybe time to stop recording. Yeah, probably is.
Yes. So is anybody looking into that, because it's kind of simpler than some of the stuff I was looking at before?
I mean, the short answer is we do have somebody investigating 64-bit stuff, as you might imagine. I don't know exactly what techniques he's using in terms of that kind of thing. I'm mostly, the focus is trying to get RISC-OS to even function on 64-bit hardware to start with. But yeah, I mean, being able to get old code running on new systems is clearly an important part of a transition to 64-bit.
Indeed. So, but basically, it's something I've been looking into, because I mean, most people who write code for Windows, which I do professionally, if you want to run ARM, you basically have to run it through a Windows JIT implementation, which basically just translates the code that's documented what it does. So you end up with a one-time compiled, effectively, or recompiled, cross-compiled form from 32, or in the case of Windows, from one 64-bit architecture to another. And there is something called Tango, which does this, oddly enough. And it just struck me that in some ways that's a simpler model. So effectively, your 32-bit ARM becomes your high-level language. Your 64-bit code is your assembler. Anyway, it's something I was just interested in.
Yes, I mean, as I say, to my mind, any solution for 64-bit really needs to accommodate the fact that most of the software is 32-bit. Well, all the software is 32-bit.
Yes.
And also the fact that nobody will likely be able to update the vast majority of the software, that simply due to people dying or disappearing, that sadly the amount of software that can be actively maintained is quite small these days, unfortunately. I mean, even within my software portfolio, there are programs that I know will not be applicable.
Absolutely.
Simply because either we don't have source code, or even if we do have source code, they're already showing problems with latest versions of Norcroft compilers and/or libraries, such that getting them to work properly on modern machines is already a challenge.
That's something I think I want to sort of look into anyway at some level. It just feels interesting to me, and it's a simpler kind of problem in a way. And so Joe, after that really good talk, very long, 80 slides or something, which is quite epic.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly that Joe's work has definitely got to impact on our 64-bit thinking. And to be fair, I think multiple different approaches that will provide sort of shorter term and longer term solutions to 64-bit. We may see a more sort of emulation-based solution.
But that's the thing; it's not emulation if it's translation.
No. I'm just saying that I was just thinking of a general idea that in order to get a solution sooner rather than later, we may see an emulation-based solution, and then a more thought-out 64-bit solution down the line. I don't know.
No, that's perfectly reasonable. I just, in a sense, your RPCMU has two modes of execution. One is basically, I think, a just-in-time compilation type, and one which is emulation. So, it's in a way, it's just something that I wanted to let you know. I was having a think about, and wonder whether anybody else was. But I'll spend some time on that, because if it helps anyone, or if it helps you, then however I get, I'll share whatever I get if I get anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I've got this hat off or hat on, or how you want to put it, just to say that I have produced. There was some chatter on the rural forums about us getting the full disk image out for new RISC-OS Direct.
Right.
And that is done. I have uploaded a new page, but it doesn't seem to have yet propagated onto the main RISC-OS website. So I need to have a little chat with Richard tomorrow morning about what's going on. But basically, the new disk image has been made. So that is also done now. I was going to ask a question about that in the quiz, but oh well, I missed that. So,
anything else?
Yeah.
In which case, it's Merry Christmas, everybody.
And to you, Chris.
Just one quick reminder for those people think. I didn't mention it at the beginning of the meeting. The next club meeting is on the second Wednesday of January. We're not going to have a meeting on the New Year's Day.
Imagine why. Come on.
You'll probably have a tipple or two on New Year Day, no doubt.
You know,
let's go on now.
I never touch a drop.
But yeah, so next one is NSR coming, and that's on the second Wednesday. So see you then. So otherwise than that,
I noticed
good Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Peter Richmond is clutching a piece of hardware there.
Sorry?
Wow.
Hang on.
What the hell?
Is that a Pro 1 or something?
That's filling a tiny little box on my screen.
Is it a Pro 1? Some sort of sense?
You're muted, Peter.
No, I'm muted.
We make that full screen. So.
There we are.
It's like is
it's
it a Pro 1?
No, it's a COBOL synthesizer, but basically you can CV just about everything, including resonance.
That's okay. A bit of a modular thing. Have you messed around with the Wasp at all?
No, I know somebody who used to have an original Wasp, so I played around with it 30 years ago.
I've got. Well, if you do buy the one that Behringer have done, you ought to have a pair of pliers to hand because they tend to be a bit seized. Take the metal pots, just to warn you. But
yeah, no, this one's fine. So I was looking at building some modules, and I went, hang on, it's 140 quid and has 7 things that will cost me more than £20 each to buy, and it's got 24 CV sockets on it.
That's good value for money. What's that work out per socket? Not too bad.
Not a lot, yeah. So that was Gear for Music, which is just around the corner from me. It's just 20 miles away. So
Gear for Music. Then.
Yeah, a poke and a play. Anyway, I wish you all a Merry Christmas and happy synthesizing.